Alright guys, as promised, here's a quick marauder guide, video guide on how I do things. It's going to be a little bit hard since I'm pressing the push to talk and pressing these buttons, but as you can see, this is my general layout for how I do things. I've got all of the pertinent abilities that I actually need to watch up farther so I can watch the fight instead of staring down here the entire fight. All of these abilities down here are just auxiliary things that you don't really have to worry about the cooldown because it's either a once per use fight, it doesn't apply, etc., etc. I don't know if you're able to see this real well based on the video quality, but I link everything around WASD and then shift keys just so I can get to it really fast so I'm not ever reaching farther than 2 or 3 keys away from it. For gear, what we're looking at is a little bit low right now. I actually need to pop in a different enhancement because right now I'm geared for Carnage. But this crit's going to stay about the same. It's a little bit too high, but it's expensive to swap out mods. Surge is about where you want to have it at, so somewhere in the range of 400 surge. You want to have about 200 to 210 crit, and then you want to have 100% melee accuracy, so your main hand abilities never miss. Me swapping in one more accuracy enhancement will get it to 240, and then I would probably pop in an accuracy augment rather than go for another full piece because you're just wasting stats there. For relics, I usually use 2 EHW if the fight has a lot of burst that you have to deal with. I'll switch it up with a Dreadguard relic just so I can proc it when I need it, just to get that bigger DPS burst. This is actually higher DPS, but it's just something that you can miss in your rotation if the fight's hectic like you're doing Nightmare EC, so I don't use it when I can get away with not using it, but if there's a burst phase or it's a very, very difficult boss, I'll equip it. As for the actual rotation, it's not so much a rotation as it is you're looking at abilities and you're prioritizing when you're going to use them based on what's procced, what your buffs look like, what the timers are. It's a very technical spec. The opener is going to be Force Charge. While you're airborne and going through the GCD of Force Charge, you activate Deadly Saber because it has no GCD, and you're going to use the 3 Rage to activate the ability so that the next attack is automatically going to start stacking DPS. I do things a little bit differently than some do. Some guys like to get the Rupture Bleed going. I prefer Batter and Assault because you're going to be really rage starved with this spec. So the sooner you get Batter and Assault down, the sooner it's off cooldown, and the sooner you can not waste attacks doing the regular Assault auto attack. Follow up Batter and Assault with a Rupture, and immediately into an Annihilate. Hopefully the Annihilate will proc the reset on the Rupture. Even if it does or it doesn't matter. Your next follow-up is going to be Ravage. After the Ravage is done, if Rupture's reset was procced, you use it. If it wasn't, then you just start building Rage and using Vicious Slash to try and proc the Rupture reset while maintaining about 4 to 6 Rage, somewhere in there. Annihilate's going to come back around on cooldown, and then you're going to want to use that within 1 GCD. So if you see the cooldown starting to get low on your buff bar, you want to build up 5 Rage so that you can immediately use that, because the first time around on Annihilate, you only have 1 GCD to miss before Annihilate buffs off, and you're just fucked. So I'll do the opener slow and into full speed so you can see it. So this is how it goes. It's Force Sleep with Deadly Saber, Batter and Assault, Rupture, Annihilate, Ravage. As you can see, the Rupture didn't proc, so I'm building up Rage, using Vicious Slash to try to reset. Deadly Saber's back off, so I'm using it, building more Rage every time that's up, and then it's just the same thing. There it resets, so as soon as I'd have enough Rage and 2 GCDs have gone by, I'm going to use Rupture again. So I'll do the opener full speed with me not saying anything. And I fucked that up. Alright, as you can see, Rupture was not off cooldown, so we'll have to wait a little bit. right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop all my Fury stacks so you can see what it's like doing a cold opener. Okay, so this is what a cold opener looks like. And that's the opener. Again, if Rupture hadn't procced, I would still be up here, building Rage, and activating Deadly Sabers as soon as it's up, using Annihilate, and still using Rupture. So what we're going to get into now is the priority rotation once you actually have your opener done, and that's going to be very dependent upon what abilities are up. It's going to be really hard for me to talk through it while I'm doing it, because my push to talk key is caps lock, so I can't push it and do my rotation at the same time very well. But the general priority is Deadly Saber, Annihilate, Rupture, and Ravage, followed by Vicious Slash. If you have Vicious Throw up, Vicious Throw becomes the #1 ability after Deadly Saber. The only time that this really applies is when you're building stacks of Annihilate. Once you have 3 stacks of Annihilate, Rupture takes priority over Annihilate. Just because that's where, you know, a lot of your bleeds damage is going to be coming from. So once you have 3 stacks of Annihilate, your rotation switches to Vicious Throw, Deadly Saber, Rupture, Annihilate, Ravage. You use Battering Assault whenever the other abilities are on cooldown and you're not at half rage, because it builds 6 rage. If you use it when you're at 7 rage or higher, you're basically just wasting rage, and there's no reason to do that. Again, you want to use Deadly Sabers the second it's up. It doesn't use the GCD, so be prepping rage if you see it coming off cooldown. Annihilate, the way the stacks work is the first time you use it, for example, you have 15 seconds until Annihilator drops off. So if you watch right here, the cooldown's going to finish. Cooldown finish, you have 3 seconds, which is 2 GCDs. If you miss that, it drops off. The next time you use it, you still only have 1 stack. Every time you use it, it reduces the next the cooldown on your next Annihilate by, believe it's it's either 2 seconds. Look real fast. No, it says it right there. It's 1.5 seconds and it stacks 3 times. So when you have 3 stacks, it's going to be up every 8 seconds. Again, now that you have 2 stacks, you have an additional GCD, so you have 3 GCDs to get it off. Once you have 3 stacks, you have 4 GCDs to get it off, so you have a lot more leeway with your rotation. So there, it's off cooldown. I could be using another attack. There's another attack. There's another attack, and now I have to use it right here just to maintain that stack. So I'll do the rotation right here the way I do it during a raid, and I'll attempt to talk you through it the best I can, but it's going to be, again, very difficult because I am going to be pressing buttons this whole time. It's the opener. Using that because the proc reset it, building rage for Deadly Sabers, forward sleeping because I have nothing else to do right now, still building rage, and Annihilate's coming off cooldown, so I'm using it. Rupturing again. Now I'm just building rage and I'm dumping it using Vicious Slash to try and proc the Rupture reset. Berserk's off, so I'm using it. Here comes Annihilate. Reset, Rupture, building rage, using Ravage. Now I have a combo dump right there. Now I'm just building rage and dumping it while maintaining enough rage to use abilities as they come up. If you don't see me clicking anything, it's because I'm using my hotkey for Vicious Slash to try and proc the Rupture reset into Dump Rage. There's a little bit of server lag, so it's not going as smoothly as I'd like, but this is the general rotation, so... Again, as this comes off of cooldown, you want to use both of these abilities. If it doesn't reset the Rupture proc, then you can just sit there and use Vicious Slash to try and dump it there at reset. Now, you don't want to use Annihilate right now because it hasn't reached 10 seconds, so there's no way it's going to proc another reset. After this cooldown on Rupture hits 10 seconds, you're free to use Annihilate to give you the biggest chance to activate another Rupture proc. You never want to stack Ruptures, so if you look right here, this is the Rupture bleed. You never want to use it again while this is still going because you're wasting Rage because it just overwrites it, it doesn't stack it. So now that it's gone, as soon as Rupture's up, I'm going to use it. So right here, I'm going to use it. I'm not going to use Annihilate because this isn't at 10 seconds. It's at 10 seconds. I'm using it at reset. The bleed's gone. There you go. Just using Ravage because it's up and everything else is on cooldown. And that's pretty much the rotation. Now, this is one of your go-to abilities. Berserk gives you an auto crit on every single one of your bleeds. So you want to use it every time it's up if it makes sense. Typically I'll use it as the opener in my rotation for the beginning of a boss fight because popping Bloodthirst will pull aggro because my DPS is through the roof. So, you can't really pre-stack, so I'm going to clear these Fury stacks. Wait for Rage to dump and I'll show you what my rotation will look like at the beginning of a boss fight. I will pop Frenzy up to a minute out because Fury stacks last for a minute if you look off to the right. And just say you start, the tanks decide to pull early. So, alright, tanks pulled, I'm jumping in. Again, sorry about this. The test dummies suck because they get so much lag. You can watch my rage management and the abilities I'm using to keep it low. You don't want to stack it too high because, again, you're just wasting DPS by building rage that you're not using. There, I've used Berserk to get the auto crits. You can see the counter right there for how many bleeds it's going to auto crit. You don't want to use a Berserk until it's cleared, so it's cleared, now I'm just going to be building Fury stacks again. The only time that really applies is when you have another Marauder in the group who's kind of screwing up the way your Fury stacks build, or if you've built up stacks and Frenzy's coming off of cooldowns so that you can have an auto, a free Sentinel Marauder use. So it's up again, using it. As you can see, it's a little bit hard for me to describe this because it's just muscle memory on what abilities I'm using. I'm not even really thinking about it right now. I'm trying to talk you guys through it. So, hopefully right here we'll get a good example of what I was just talking about with Fury stacks. There, that's awesome. I moved my hotkeys. That's me using the Rupture Bleed too early to show you that. If you didn't see that, you can rewind it a second. I overrode the bleed because I used it before it was done. It's got a 6-second bleed, so don't use it within 3 GCDs of using your last Rupture, because 1.5 seconds is used up by the first GCD, and then you have 3 attacks until you can use Rupture again efficiently. So here it comes. There, I've used Berserk. Stacks are still up, but I'm going to build Frenzy just because it's off cooldown. Now I don't want to use Berserk again until these bleeds use up my other stacks of Berserk. So now it's gone and now I'm going to use it. And that's all there is to the rotation. It's literally just the same thing I've been doing over and over again. If you guys want personal tutoring lessons, I can do that. I don't really have a whole lot of better stuff to do with my time in this game because really I just PvP. One thing to think about is using your Relic and your Adrenal when you have Bloodthirst coming up. It's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck, but be aware that you might have to use Force Camo to drop your threat because it's going to send your snap threat through the roof. If you can time a Berserk with a Bloodthirst, then that also is an awesome time to use your Relic or your Adrenal. Sometimes the fights don't permit you to do that because you need to save them for certain phases to beat, tough DPS requirements. But that's just personal knowledge of the fights and your abilities. So that's really all there is for rotation. There's not really many other tweaks I make. Again, it's all about keeping 3 stacks of Annihilator. If you lose your stacks of Annihilator, you're going to lose a significant portion of your DPS. For the first one, again, you have 2 GCDs to use it after the cooldown is done. Watch. Hit 0, 3 seconds, so that's 1 GCD, 2 GCDs, have to use it. If you are not good at counting GCDs, you can look right here at the number. When it hits the very bottom of these numbers, that's when you absolutely have to use it before it drops off. For 2 stacks, you can hit it right at the middle of 2, and for 3 stacks, you can hit it when it's pretty much halfway done. So there it is, halfway done, and you can hit it. Again, at the very bottom of the number is where you have 1 GCD left, and you have to use it. For defensive cooldowns, it's pretty simple. You save Cloak of Pain for when you know you're about to take damage and you pop it. It reduces the damage by 20%. It's a pretty significant amount. Saber Ward is only really good for when you know that there's going to be a big hit coming. It's either going to reduce the overall damage taken if it's not a melee attack. That'll cut it by an additional 25%, so if you stack the 2 of them, it's 55%. And it also gives you whatever your ranged and melee defense chances are. It raises it by 50%, so it'll put you at 55. It has a high chance to absorb, deflect, parry. You can combo Cloak of Pain with Force Camo for a huge damage reduction. It reduces the damage taken by 50%. So if you combo that and Cloak of Pain, it cuts the damage down by 70%. If you combo it with Saber Ward, because you know it's a force or a tech attack, it basically means you take no damage. But be aware that this is on a really long cooldown. It's on 3 minutes, and you can only use it maybe once or twice a fight.
Yo, Rannick.